I would not look too closely at what happened, what was going on in the primaries for a couple of reasons. Number one, we knew on the Democratic side, we've seen from polling, from Bloomberg polling, that there's a substantial percentage of Democrats who just think President Biden is too old and should not be running. And so that they might pick, some other name or whatever, or none of the above, or what, that's not a shocker. And I don't think on the Republican side, I don't think that there is a Haley vote in that sense, because if she had gone to court and had her name changed to none of the above, she'd probably do better than she did. I mean, it is basically, that is the option if you're not for Trump. And that we knew that there is a constituency out there. But one of the things that the New York Times did an analysis based on what their findings in Georgia and data files and all this, where they found that the Haley voters were pretty much people that had voted for Biden, in the last election. So I don't think that there is a big group of people wearing Haley jerseys that are, run around in the political process. It's just more people that aren't for Trump or people that aren't for Biden. And, there's going to be defections on each side, or more likely where they just simply don't vote. And that's actually, one of the bigger problems for Democrats is with young voters, with Latinos, with African Americans, is, they're worried about defections, but they're also worried about a lack of enthusiasm and turnout.
Hey, Charlie, we were lucky to have you on Super Tuesday as you sat at the table here reminding us that it was not very super, that things were foregone, that we were looking at an inevitable equation in this case with two candidates nobody seemed to really even want. I wonder now, as we enter April and looking at, you mentioned our poll, Bloomberg and Morning Consult, our swing state poll showing Donald Trump winning the majority of them. Today, Wall Street Journal shows Donald Trump leading Joe Biden in 6 key states. Is this thing over? The general, that is?
I don't think it's over, but I think it's definitely uphill for President Biden. I think it'd be foolish for anybody to say Biden cannot win. But if you were just totaling up the factors that are arguing for a Biden win, politically speaking or electorally speaking, and for a Trump win, it's really, really, really uphill. And and as you said, people, they should first of all ignore national polls. I mean, they're good for directional. Is Smith gaining or Jones losing? That sort of thing. But this election is going to be decided in 6 or 7 states, depending upon whether you include North Carolina or not. And the way to look at it is to look at the Bloomberg Morning Consult poll, the Wall Street Journal swing state poll, the New York Times Siena College, and then individual single shot polls that CNN, Fox, and other news organizations are doing. That's what's going to tell us. But this is, I think the framework is going to be, this is not going to be a referendum on Donald Trump. That when you have an incumbent running for re-election, it's basically, do you want to renew that incumbent's contract? Yes or no? Stay the course, time for a change. And that's what it was about in 2020 when Trump was president. And I think that's what's going to be here. But as I mentioned, I think on Super Tuesday with you, that, this is the first presidential election since 1892 that you have back-to-back presidents running against each other. And what that means is it invites a side-by-side comparison for that 8 to 10% that are pure independents in the middle that aren't for more or less locked in for each side. It's going to be who is better off for me. And those people, they vote on not the economy, but their economy. And they don't vote, they wouldn't know the CPI from NCIS, but they do know the cost of living. One thing that's really, really, really there. But, the 8 to 10% in the middle, there are not a whole lot of Bloomberg watchers and listeners there. These are people that are a lot less information driven.
I'm going to get that CPI and NCIS line printed on a T-shirt, Charlie Cook. But when we talk about that 8 to 10%, it's about who they vote for, yes, but it's also about whether they vote at all, whether they're going to turn out. And I know you said that you see this election cycle as really an uphill climb for Biden, but he is winning the resource battle. He is far ahead on fundraising. He has far more cash to spend. When you have a cash pile like that you can use to drive turnout, how should we think about how that might change the dynamics once he starts deploying that in a more material way?
First of all, thank you for adding about turnout, because it is absolutely true that the 8 to 10% that are the pure independents, that they vote, they pay attention less, they pay attention later, and they end up voting in lower numbers. So that then the 90, 91, 92% that are partisans on one side or the other. So good point. Thank you for making that. Look, it's always better to have more money than the other candidate, and the more you can have, the better. But in politics, basically, there's a law of diminishing returns, where there's a point where you have a lot of money, and that the incremental value of every additional dollar isn't that great. And the other thing is, the higher the visibility of the office, the less important campaign spending is. And that on a state rep race, a city council race, or whatever, lower where there's less news coverage, campaign spending is a lot more important there. But in a presidential race, I mean, let me ask you, what could a TV ad possibly do or say that would change somebody's mind one way or the other about Joe Biden or Donald Trump? They've already got 10 million data points there. And so money, I'm happy for the Biden people that they're going to have more money. And that's always makes, you have to make fewer choices. But in a presidential race, money is not that determinative, but it sure is better to have it than not. And Trump's, they're going to have plenty of money. I mean, you have candidate money, in other words, the Trump for president, you've got super PAC money, you've got various other entities and party things. I mean, there's a lot of money sloshing around this system.